Steve, founders of Bombers and Sleeves, a clothing and lifestyle brand dedicated to artists, writers, musicians, anyone on a creative path, or anyone looking to start a creative journey of their own. Our goal with this company and our BombCast is to encourage you to win the internal war of your creative pursuit, and we sum that up in 3 words, and those 3 words are bomb your boundaries. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's think about it for a second. What has more concentrated, focused, explosive energy than a bomb? Not that much fucking else. So we use that as a metaphor to say if you want your dreams to come true, if you want to see that creative vision come through, you got to get intense, focused, and explosive. And so with this BombCast, we bring to you guests that embody that Bomb Your Boundaries motto. You're going to hear, it's the slogan for the whole company, so you're going to see it all over the website. You're going to hear it throughout the podcast. So if you're wondering what that means, now you know. We have an amazing guest in the studio today. I'm going to hand it over to Steve to introduce him. But this guy is nothing short of a bomber of boundaries. I'm excited to have him here today. So, Steve, who do we got?
All right, what's up, everybody? We are super stoked to have in the studio today. Not only is he one of the most sought-after music producers here in Nashville, not only is he one of my favorite guitarists. Yep, I said that. He also played a major important role in the birth of this BombCast, and we are on episode 5. So I just want to say thank you so much to this guy, and I can't wait for you guys to hear his story. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Phil Barnes.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Welcome, brother. Welcome.
What's up, man?
I was just happy to be here.
It's great to have you here, man. Really excited. Well, Phil, so we like to start out every episode, just slowing it down a little. Let's take it back to kind of the early childhood days for you. Introduce us to that first time you were introduced to music and kind of tell us about what that experience was like, what turned you on to it, and then kind of get to that point where you tell us when you knew it was what you wanted to do with your life.
Yeah, so I grew up going to a summer camp in North Carolina. Where there was a couple counselors in particular. One was JB and another one was Ben, who played guitar and banjo and a bunch of other instruments. But I remember the first year going to that summer camp, seeing them play, and I was like, oh, like that's cool. I want to do that, because I sucked at every single sport that I've ever done. I mean, I did intramural soccer, I did JV football, I did baseball, t-ball, golf, sucked at everything, but I was like, hold on, like this might be something I could learn, and they looked really cool, and I wanted to look cool. So I went home, and my grandfather had given me this 3-stringed guitar. I can't even remember the name. Decca. It was a Decca guitar. It was I think they made them up in Louisville. And so I learned how to play Smoke on the Water on it and stuff like that. And then my parents saw like, oh, he's playing a 3-string guitar. We should probably try to, get him something that's worth $75 at Sam Ash. So They went and got me a Carlo Robelli acoustic, which is Sam Ash's stock brand of instruments. Just a luxury piece.
Is that like an Esteban guitar?
Exactly right.
Nice,
just
dude.
like that.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like, it's a little bit of an upgrade from what you would get going to like Toys R Us or Walmart, but it's not quite like a Fender or anything like that. But It was enough to where it was low risk and low barrier of entry, where my parents would be like, he might give this up like golf, intramural soccer,
Sure.
They were like, okay, we'll give him a try. So I started playing on that and just fell in love with, the whole process of figuring out a song and then just, learning how to tune the guitar and restring it. And, so I would say that was my first real introduction to it, where I was like, okay, this is leading to something. But when I was growing up, when I was real young, my first little taste of it, was my neighbor, Craig. He had an astounding collection of guitars that were all old Dan Electros from the 50s and 60s and just beautiful things. And he played in a punk rock band. And so he used to let me come down to his house and he'd plug up an amp and a guitar, and he would put me on his front porch and just let me wail. And I was literally just hitting open strings, but people would be walking by in the street, and I don't know whether they were giving grimaces of like, oh, that sounds awful, but they were looking at me, and I was like, So when I got to camp and I saw that happening again with the people that were actually playing real chords, I was like, this is how you get people to pay attention to what you're doing. So dove into guitar and practiced for a couple of years, continued going to that summer camp, and they did a little talent show one night And I went up and played Wonderwall, as you do, and
yes.
and that was kind of like my first experience of performance. And I'd be like, oh, this is really fun. Like people actually enjoy like seeing you do something that you love. So I leaned into that, and when I got home, I started learning more songs, started playing coffee shops, and then that led into me playing in hotel bars that I was far too young to play in. I'd be like 17 in high school and like out till like 1, 2 in the morning playing at these hotel bars. And I told everyone I was 21, and I don't know whether they believed it or not, but they let me play there. And that just turned into playing more bar stuff into college. I did some corporate gigs and stuff like that. So it just was a natural progression towards performing. And then that, through a series of events of getting to Nashville after some touring and stuff like that, led me into, oddly enough, getting into production and writing way more so than I ever did performance. That's kind of been my little snaky path into where I got,
Nice.
At least to Nashville.
Oh, perfect, man.
Yeah.
And then so now you're here in Nashville. I think I remember. So you started out wanting to be an artist when you first moved here, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so what was the transition from like being an artist into being a producer? Would you mind? I think I remember a story on that. Would you mind retelling that?
Yeah, I laugh about that now because it was just so. It's natural to talk about it now, but at the time I'm like, what's happening to me?
Yeah.
So I moved to town to be an artist. I had made a record the year prior, coming back and forth from Florida to Nashville, and I made it with a guy named Aaron Krause, who's an incredibly talented producer and artist here in town. And working with him was just such an inspiring experience because I was like, oh, this is how a song comes to life. Because I had a bunch of songs on acoustic guitar that I had written and a couple with my buddy Wes, and I kind of had seen the potential of what it could turn into, and that was like my limit that I reached before I got in the room with Aaron. And Aaron had this way of going like, okay, cool, we're going to take away this acoustic guitar, and then we're going to play electric, and then we're going to put synths on this. And I'm like, what's happening? But that was, the truth is that the things that he was pushing me for was the sound of the records that I actually loved. You know, and I think when you're starting out as a musician, you try to give the best bet that you can. And you're like, there's an acoustic guitar in here, so I'm just going to play acoustic guitar, you know? But you start seeing like the intricacies of a record that you love is so complex. And I remember the process of like making that record, I fell in love with every aspect of that. It was like, oh, we're going to spend some time on keys today, and then we're just going to program drums for the next 5 hours and just really care about it. So me seeing that, I immediately went, okay, this is really cool. This feels like something I could fall in love with. And at the time I had been, on the road a fair amount. I did like 100, 150 dates a year, split between some bar gigs. And then I would go, play some shows that were like a small club level and open for some artists and in a couple of bigger venues. And that was definitely helpful to get some road stuff going on. But meanwhile, I'm falling more and more in love with production and writing and the actual process of creating the songs, more so than I ever was performing them. So as soon as I put my record out in August of 2016, I almost immediately stopped promoting it after it came out, because I'd spent 6 months being like, check out this record, check out this record, check out this record.
Yeah.
As soon as it came out, I was like, all right, what's next? And I had been writing all these songs, and I've been doing some demos and GarageBand at the time, and like budding into being a producer, quote unquote track guy sort of thing. And oh man, I just had so much more joy doing that than I ever did talking about my record or going and playing a show. And so I just leaned into that, man. Like it was, there was no sort of turning point to go like, oh, you can make a ton of money in this and then get out of that. No, I was making nothing when I switched from, I was pretty much making nothing as a starving musician my first year here in Nashville either way. But it was one of those things where it's like, I'm not pivoting into more dollars here. It's just, I'm pivoting into something I love more.
Right. Yeah. And was that a crazy experience? Like the second that it came out, you're like, everything I've been working towards is not what I want to do. Like, yeah. How? I feel like it's not as easy for a lot of people to remain open to that. Like, I feel like your ego can get in the way and say like, no, this is what I said I'm going to do. Like, it's not that easy to pivot. How was that for you?
Exactly. And I think during the time I had become a little bit more of a self-aware individual, going through a little bit of heartbreak and going through some harder situations in the past few years, with losing my brother. And it was just all, it all started to come around that year of like facing some reality of like, oh, if you really don't do what you love, like you're doing yourself a disservice. So I think it was
important, man.
I'm really good about, I won't brag on myself, but I am really good about sensing change and when things need to end. And so for me, like that was, I had an overwhelming feeling of like, this season's done. And let me just go try to find something that's in the same lane of music and the same thing that I've always loved, but using my skills in a different way. And I found that like the entire time that I was being an artist, I was just sitting there talking about myself. I'm like, go check out my record, come to my show, do this. There wasn't enough joy in that. But the moment that I could actually make a song for someone else and dive into their story as an artist and dive in it as a producer, like I found purpose in that. It was like, oh, I can take someone's story and put it into this beautiful piece of art they can then take and do what I was doing before, but on a larger scale. And that to me, I was like, cool, I can work on 5 songs a week with 5 different artists, and then I can widen my scope that way and be like, oh, cool, I'm affecting more than I am on my own. And the ego tricks you because it's like, no, I'm the most important person ever.
Right?
You're not.
No.
You're not. It's all about what can you do for other people. In my opinion, that's the way that I tend to live my life is like, what is my role here to be able to benefit the people around me? And knowing that and learning that for myself was stepping into the role as a producer and songwriter way more so than being an artist. And I tell you what, you know it when you see a good artist. And I know it in my gut when I go to a show and I see someone who's not going to be an artist in a year. And you just sit there and you're just like, okay, cool. They don't know it yet, but everyone in the room does. But when you see an artist that is just phenomenal, there's this energy in the room that is undeniable. And I didn't have that. I thought I did. But if I was being completely self-aware, I knew it as soon as I got to Nashville and started looking in rooms with artists that were that. And then there were some that weren't. But you just know it in your gut. I'm not trying to speak for you guys, but I feel like when you go to see a show, you go,
oh, absolutely.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm
right
there with you.
Well, I mean, for you, Phil, like, what are some of those elements that make that artist so just impactful and great, that gives you that feeling in your gut? What is that kind of like?
It's like a great storyteller. When you can listen to somebody tell a story about something that happened and you buy into it completely and you can't wait for the next word, that's the way I want to feel at a show.
Yeah.
Like I want someone to get on stage and them not to be looking around if the guitar player's in the right spot or if the drummer hit the SPD, or I don't want them to be aware of anything other than me and them. And the more that you see an artist walk around on a stage, and whether they're looking down or they're looking at the audience, and you can just tell that they're in the moment and present. I live for that, man.
Yeah.
I don't go to shows often anymore because I make music all day and my ears are tired and I want to hang out with my girlfriend.
Sure.
But the occasional shows that I do go to, which there's a ton in Nashville that you do end up going to. But when you go and you see someone own a stage like that, it's almost hard to describe, Steve, because it's not something that's tangible. It's just this vibe of when you see someone just owning it and they get up there and they just sing their songs to you and you buy every word of it and you're not worried about anything that's going on other than them and you.
Yeah. It's like you can't name it, but it's just that something that's so magical and special that you just feel it. Yeah. Real quick, I just wanted to ask you too, like when you were kind of going through the getting new with the whole production side of things, were there like records that kind of inspired you? Like was it like just like whether it was like sound or production wise, like what was kind of a main inspiration like that triggered your ear?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think it's more so and more so than ever now has just been touching back on records that I loved when I was like 16, 17. And, maybe even before that, like some 14, 15 year old, like I loved Death Cab for Cutie growing up and I never knew why I did. Like I thought I just loved their songs for some reason. I do, and I like Ben Gibbard's voice. But the real reason is when I go back and listen to those records, Chris Walla had a way of breaking up those productions into the guitar would be doing one part, or it would sound like the guitar is doing one part the entire song, but it's actually 3 guitars doing one part. And I remember loving that because it spread across the entire spectrum in your ears. And it just felt like the biggest guitar ever. And so now, like, I mean, I was learning it early on in production, but it was more so now I'm just trying to execute those things that I love. And there's things from Death Cab, and there's some John Mayer stuff that I really loved growing up, and there's some country records that I loved. I mean, I really loved a bunch of rock stuff. Oh gosh, there's just so many. There's an artist named Andrew Bell that I've always really loved his productions. And I really love pop music. So like anything from like One Republic World or, Selena Gomez, Ariana Grande, like those, all those things have like were just pummeling me in the ears. I mean, less so pummeling, but more so tickling my ears, being like, "You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this thing." And so now I've just tried to take all those things that I love and put it into the music. And I think it's just been getting greater clarity on that little funnel of like, I love this about this and this about this, and I'm gonna put it into this artist. You know, if it's the right thing. I think now I'm just getting more and more clear on that. I'm like, I know what ingredients from my past to grab and go, okay, this is that. And so it's just been a progression for the past 3 years of like, okay, this is a little bit clearer now. This is a little bit more of the execution I'm going for in my head, because I think I've always heard it in my head. I just haven't been able to do it with my hands. And now I feel like, you know, every year gets better, but it's just like one of those things where it's like, it's starting to happen now, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. You can focus less on the technical side and
Yes.
and focus more on just the artistry of it.
The technical side
You
is
become
so
like
important.
a master chef. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, dude. Yeah, definitely. But when you can forget about that and just be
Yes.
in the moment with that, I think that's what you're talking about with great artists too, man. They're not thinking about the lyrics. They're not thinking about anything. They're literally like just it's coming out of them effortlessly.
And maybe that's the key to what life is. You know, it's just presence. It's
Yeah,
just
expand on that, man.
Ooh, yeah.
But the only way that you can get to presence is to be prepared and to know and to be well studied on something. Like you can't feel confident in something if you know nothing about it. You know
Yeah.
what I
Right.
mean? Like you can feign it, but everyone knows
Right.
when you're faking it. So I think, yeah, man, in any aspect, whether it's an artist or the joy that I find as a producer is those moments where I can get lost in a mix, or I can get lost in the actual making of the art and go like, oh wow, that is the exact feeling that I was having that's in this synth pattern right now, and it's on the track now, you know? Like that's the dream, man.
Dude, that's beautiful, man. One of the coolest things that I really love about you, and I think this is only like the third time I've been around you, but two things I noticed that are awesome about you, man. You're always the first one to call out what you respect in someone else. Like when we were talking off mic, you're like, you know what's really cool about you, this and this, and like, and now it's cool to hear your story because like you take that same type of complimentary nature into your work too, man, which I think is awesome. And then the other thing is just like your general self-awareness is super cool, man. So I wanted to acknowledge you for that, but then also I'm curious with that type of spirit, like I would imagine, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like when you're walking around in daily life, man, like on a daily walk or whatever you may do, are you taking cues from nature and everyday life and like assimilating that to like a certain sound in your head? And like I'm just curious, like if you draw on inspiration that way as well.
I wish I was that artsy, man. No, I wish, but for me, man, like my whole life is built on routine, and I know that sounds super boring, but like if I don't prime myself the right way every day, I don't perform well. So like if I don't get up around the same time every day and don't do my normal things of like, you know, making some coffee, making some breakfast, you know, I try to meditate as often as I can, read a little bit, stay away from email, stay away from Instagram. And the more that I have those first hours in the morning to myself to get myself ready and I feel great, I can go in and be as artistic and creative as I want. But I'm not really a wanderer until I find sort of thing. I'm more of like if I'm ready, I'm good to go. But if I'm not, oh, I'm awful, dude. Like, I know the days when I just haven't done it well, and then I get in and I'm like, all right, cool. We're gonna just be fighting this wall the entire day.
Dude, that's amazing, man. I've heard or read a lot, man. Like routine plays a huge role in not only creative types, but also, you know, scientists, obviously high level business people. Like you have to have that anchor, man. Can you walk us through like the 30-second version of your routine?
Yeah, I try to wake up around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning every day. Try to. Some days that looks like 8 o'clock, but most of the time it's 5:30, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Get up, make some coffee, breakfast. I need to work out more, so I'm going to be adding that into the routine. Meditate, hop in the shower, get out, and then I'm usually in some sort of a meeting around like 8, 9 in the morning, whether it's with an artist or a publisher. But I try to get to the studio every day by 10, and then I'll usually have another meeting where I'm taking care of admin, and there's always a session at 11 o'clock. So first artist comes in, and we're doing, or a writer comes in, and Steve's been over to my studio many times.
Yeah.
And we'll get started at 11, and then if it's a write, we'll go till 2. If it's a production, I have them until 6. So we'll go until 2, grab lunch, and then come back around 3:00 and finish out the song. Or if it's a write, I'll have a vocal session in the afternoon, and then I wrap up by 6, and then drive down to Franklin to spend time with my girlfriend, or I go back to East to chill with myself. And I try to get to bed like 10 o'clock every night, sometimes 11. But I feel great if I'm in bed by like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And that did not used to be me. When I was first getting into production, dude, I'd be at the studio till 3:00 in the morning because it was new. And it was like, I want to try everything. But now, like, if I do not take care of myself the day before, I will fail the next day. I just know it, and I've learned it so many times that, like, I can't even joke about it with friends. They're like, oh, stay up late tonight. Let's go hang out. And I'm like, I literally can't. You want me to be ready for your session tomorrow? I have to take care of myself. And so, it's top of mind this week. Is just there's been a few days that I haven't really looked after myself and kind of overextended things on hours wise. And I'm feeling it this week. Like, to be honest, like, I just knew as soon as I got in yesterday morning, I'm like, I'm a little off, and I know exactly why. So it's the self-awareness and of not only understanding situations, but also understanding yourself that I think is so important, because everyone's different. You know, some people are night owls. Like, that's just the way they're genetically wired. Not me, man. Like, I know what I need, and I just try to do nothing other than that.
Well, I want our audience to know, because I've seen you're ready. Like, I've seen one of the most fascinating things about working with you is when you come over to the studio and see you in the zone. And we just had a write not too long ago with our previous guest, Nora, who we talked to. And it's so funny, and even she commented on this, like, you are probably the only producer that when we go in, you have already pretty much finished the song before we're on verse 2, because and in that zone, it's so impressive. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, like, I mean, it almost makes me feel like a little bit inferior as a writer. So I'm like, we should be finishing this up too. But I love you in that zone, and it's very powerful. And it's, man, not a lot of people can do that. But it's, this routine and all your hard work, it really shows. And it's fascinating, bro.
And the only reason why I do that is because I want you to feel so good about when you write that second verse.
Yeah.
That it's already got a bed and it's already good to go. It's never a rush thing. It's only because, like, I just care about what you're doing in the back of the room as a top liner, where it's just like, you should have a really good piece of music, not a fucking banjo loop.
Very
you know what
true.
I mean?
Very true.
Like, I will never be the guy who's going on Splice and downloading loops and then going right to this song. Like, it's not a song, man. Like, people give me backlash about this, but I just don't think that's the way to do it. Like, if you're coming in and you're writing a very custom feeling based piece of lyric and melody, I should be making a track that is just as good, because the songs that you just grab from loops and stuff, they don't live, man. Like, the ones that are just built in the room and the vibe and the environment, if everyone's on fire that day, you can feel it in the song, and I know it, man. And that'll inspire me through the mix. That'll inspire me to pitch it. That'll inspire me to hand it to the artist. Like, but if you don't put in that level of work, what results do you expect?
Yeah. Very true.
Dude, yeah, and what I love about that, dude, is you're like, that artist for that time is your customer, man. You're focused on that customer experience, man, on the details of it, and that's huge, man. I love, because that's definitely not the case with everyone, man. So I love that you adopt that and put that in there, and that that's going to take you sky high, man.
Well, the most important thing to me is that the artist is able to be as transparent as possible about their feelings in the moment and their artistry, so that it can connect with the listener. And anything short of that, I don't want to waste any time on. Like, if we're having an off day, let's go get lunch. You know what I mean? Like, let's not try to make something that's not going to actually come out of that session, and let me never let someone down because I'm not on that day. That's why it's so important to me for me to be on and ready to go, because I might have an artist that's coming in off of the deepest heartbreak of their life, and they want to make that record that's going to connect with their listener in a way they've never been able to do.
Yep.
And that could be my Thursday.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if I'm not on and ready, then I'm doing a disservice to not only the artist or the writer or the top liner in the room. I'm doing a disservice to the eventual listener of that song.
Yeah.
But the more that you can get on is the more magic can happen.
That's amazing, dude. So do you have, like, you seem like the guy that would have, like, like written down core values for how you operate as a producer. It seems like one of them is definitely integrity. And then can you walk us through that, man?
Yeah, dude. Well, I'll say this. I'm a really big fan of principles, and there's a book by Ray Dalio.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That principles book, I am currently trying to make one for myself, for my own life. So
nice.
I have Evernote, which I put all of my book notes into, and I'm also keeping a log of not only things that I stand by and like my core principles of whether it's work or life, but also I'm keeping a decision journal right now, which is like when I make an important decision throughout a week, I log it in there as the situation was, what I decided and why. And then at the end of the week, if there's a result from that, I go in and I check it and I see, oh, what was my decision? What was the actual result of it? Did I decide the right way or did I make a wrong move?
That's
so
awesome.
It's keeping myself accountable while also like having a quick reference to my principles of the things that I care about. And like what you're mentioning with integrity is really important to me. But the biggest thing for me is honesty when it comes to relationships. Is I would rather have a hard conversation with someone up front than to let resentment build, because that is the biggest killer of relationships, is things that you don't talk about because you're scared.
Yes.
And the thing is, the conversation you have 2 months down the road when you haven't spoken for a month and a half is way scarier than the one that you just need to have in the moment and be like, hey, let's just talk about this and figure it out. And being in the creative industry, there's just so much on the line as far as people's vulnerability that it's easy to be in a state of oversight sometimes, where someone's showing you something and you're not responding in the right way, and it can be so deeply hurtful.
Yes.
But that's why I think it's important to be like present, be honest with somebody so that you can receive that, and be able to actually like help and give to that and be a supportive, positive person in that. So I feel like that's my role as not only a producer, as a human being, is to be able to like really shoulder things with people and then get them to the other side. Like I'll empathize with you, but I'm also going to work your ass off to get you there. I don't know. I feel like if I try to be like a musical trainer.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
No, totally,
like,
man.
You kind of want to like them, but you kind of want to be scared of them in a way.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh, they're going to really push me.
That builds incredible trust
Yeah.
between you guys, though, man.
Yeah.
And then, just like you said. So, even just since starting the company, man, like within the first week or so, Steve and I, we came together. We're like, hey, dude, like I got some things to talk to you about. Let's just be honest. We got to set the bar now of being wide open, because that's the only way this is. And we've had 2 or 3 conversations like that, and it always feels amazing afterwards.
They are. They're scary to have, but you're so damn glad you did it at the end, and it's like, man, I'm so glad we got that out of the way, because you're right. What you said too. If you let it fester for like 2 months, it's just going to be heavier and heavier, and it just gets more deadlier.
Sorry not to cut you off, dude. You would love a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor, if you haven't.
Ooh,
checked
I haven't
it out.
read that. No.
Yeah, it's really good, dude. It's all about that same kind of thing, man, and just like creating a safe space for getting brutally honest, but like, setting the expectation up front, like, hey, I am not going to take it personally. You shouldn't take it personally either. This is for the betterment of our entire organization.
Exactly.
Now throw down on the table.
And it's not about being mean.
No,
that's
not
the
at
biggest
all.
thing. It's just about having an open door for someone, and that thing can be as gentle as it needs to be, but there needs to be a fucking open door.
Yeah.
Or people don't feel like they can be themselves.
Yeah. Because like we just all want to win at the end of the day, right? Whatever that definition of winning is, and if we're working together, artist producer relationship, or in a business setting, like everything we're saying is just to get us both across the finish line, man. It's not a personal thing in that.
Exactly right.
I thought it was really funny. I just want to tap back into something that Kevin said earlier, and this is why I think you're just such an amazing human. But you said, like, Phil, like in this is your 3rd time meeting him, but he always tells you what he respects about you, like just up front. So the other day, I thought I have to mention this because I think it's hilarious. But I go to your studio and I was wearing a hat, and I don't normally wear hats. And Phil looks at me, and the first words he says is, "Steve, you look really good in hats, man. You got a good face for a hat." I was like, "What?" So I come home, I tell my wife, "Phil said I look really good in hats." And she goes, "Oh yeah, you do." I've been wearing a hat for like 3 weeks now. Okay, it stayed with me. But I just have to throw that out. I love it, dude.
Man.
That was so cool.
You do have a face for hats, man,
thanks.
and that's rare, dude.
Thank you.
Like, that's very rare to have
I have a great hat face.
for it. Yeah, dude.
No one's ever said that to me before, so okay, I'll take it.
For myself, those wide brim hats, they look like shit.
Really?
Like I wish I could look cool with them. Like I want to be Super East
You
Nashville
got too
sometimes.
cool a
but
hair though to even cover that up,
thanks.
dude. You've
Yeah,
got like it's like the magic way. I can't even describe, guys. If our audience knew what your hair looked like right now, they would just cream in their pants. It looks awesome, dude. I love your hair.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
We'll call it the widow wave.
The widow
Shout out
wave.
little widow's peak, but it's got like the wave to it.
Totally.
Yeah, shout out to Skylar Greg over at Scouts East in Nashville.
I've heard that place is
Scouts East
awesome.
Nashville.
Oh,
It's
nice.
amazing. Skylar's the only girl I go to. Yep, I've been seeing her for like 3-4 years. I've been seeing her to get my hair cut for 3-4 years now. She's excellent.
That looks fantastic.
Thank you. That's very kind.
So what the fuck else, dude? I just love the energy in the room.
I know, this is awesome, dude. This went down a different path than I was expecting, and I love
Yeah,
it, man. I
it's
love that we're
fun.
getting into the more like personal values side of stuff because dude, it spills over into everything, man. So I guess we can take a slight left turn and just say what's on deck present day for you, man. I don't know how much you want to get into possible new directions you're taking with anything or just tell me what's exciting and what's coming up for you.
I'm finishing up some records right now, which I'm really pumped about that I've been working on for the past year. There's one by a band called Stellar Revival. They were previously signed to Capitol, and they put a record out that I loved. And I actually knew them from Florida growing up. And once I moved to Nashville, I started getting plugged into the scene, songwriting, and my production had grown. My business had grown to a level where it was like it made sense. I started talking with some of the guys, and it really ended up forming really naturally where they were getting the band back together. They'd just done some shows with Bon Jovi, and they had done some shows in Florida, and they were getting some things back together because they took a break after the record came out and did some reassembling of some of the members, and they were getting back into the game, and I was like, I really want to make a rock record right now. I just need to. And so, oddly enough, Reno, the lead singer, ended up coming to town on a bachelor party, and we ended up talking. We're like, yeah, man, it's time to make a record. And he's like, we want to do it with you. We just finished up these songs with Zach in LA, and want you to do that, the other side of the record. So I started working on that in October, and then recorded a bunch of other instruments after they left town. They all came town for a week, and we recorded everything. It was a blast. So recorded a bunch of other instruments and got it all sent over to Tom Lord Alge. He's doing the mixing on it, and that's 2 of the songs are done now, and we're waiting for the other 2 to get done in the next few weeks, and then it'll go to mastering and come out. I'm just excited for them because it's a whole new chapter, doing something that's like country rock. But that's one of my projects, and I've been working on a record with this kid named Alex DeLeo for the past year, which is super indie pop rock. It's like indie rock with super pop melodies.
Ooh.
So it's really fun for me to kind of
That's your wheelhouse, baby.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so I've been working on those 2 records have been my biggest time investment over the past year, and since they're kind of coming to a close, the singles have from other artists like female pop artists. I work with a bunch of badass women. That's one thing I'm really proud of is I have a roster of women that are just so talented at what they do. That I just love being able to get into a room with them and make something really special. So I'm working on a few singles for some other artists, and I've been writing a lot with a guy named Chris Allen, who was on American Idol.
Oh, yeah.
And he is an excellent singer-songwriter and artist, and one of my favorite people to produce his vocals. He's just excellent. So we've been writing a lot, doing some stuff for TV film with him, and writing for his next record. So I've been working on that, and then some EPs here and there. It's a mixed bag every day.
Yeah.
So a week will look like working on an R&B project, working on a rock project, working on a country project, and then doing doing straight up pop stuff. So it's sometimes it's 2 different genres in the same day, which I love. Just because I love so many different types of music, and the opportunity to be able to work with artists that are great at what they do is just my life's treasure.
That's awesome, dude.
That's awesome, dude.
Oh, we both said, yeah, I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
It's so great because when you're talking about these artists that you get to work with every day, it's funny because you don't mention too much country. And so I wanted to make that important to our audience. Nashville is kind of known for being country, but it's also known for being music city. It's all different sorts of acts, and it's not just country. There's every genre here. And I think it's awesome that you're kicking ass with doing pop projects or rock projects. It's so cool, man. And you slay those, dude. And you play me some samples, and I'm always blown away by your work. I love it, dude. I do want to take it back just a second because we like to ask our guests this one question about Nashville. When you were coming in, like when you first moved here and you first saw that skyline, and like we all did, right? Like, it was like that moment you saw the Batman building. You was like, oh, shit, here we go. What was that feeling like for you? Like, okay, my life is going to forever change. I'm moving to Nashville. This is what I want to do. Just take us through that moment, man.
Oh, man. I remember the first time that I drove into town making a record because I was staying in, I had some old neighbors of mine that I grew up with. Their parents lived in Franklin. And so I would stay in Franklin and drive through town over to Antioch to go to the studio when I was making my record. And I remember driving up and seeing the skyline and just being like, oh, this is where everything happens. Like being in the city where your industry is located just has like I don't know, there's a level of prominence that you feel just in the air of being around it,
Yes.
So I remember like when I was making that record, I was just driving around Music Row and like seeing what everything looked like. I'm like, there's like all these names that I've recognized forever. They're right there in that little house,
Yeah.
I remember that was so mind blowing for me. So, that feeling, I think after a few years of being here, it starts to wear off in you a little bit where it's just like, this is normal. And I talk about this with my girlfriend Liz all the time where it's like, she came from DC and she was working in the business world. And when she moved to Franklin, she's like, everyone here does music. She's like, it's kind of like, I don't feel like I'm special. Like, I don't feel like I can stand out because everyone only cares about music. And I remember like when we were first starting to talk about it, I'm like, this is the only place in the world that we feel that way because everywhere else we're so strange.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Everyone's
Yeah.
like, you do music. How do you make a living doing
Good
that?
luck.
No one asks you that question here.
They don't.
And
They
the thing
assume
is,
you
when
do music. They do.
Yeah, man. They're like, oh, you do. Of course you do music, which is, which after a while you're like, yeah, you get used to it, but it is amazing, man. Like there's no other place like it. So I would say when I first moved to town, I felt like I belonged. For the first time, I was in a city where it was like, it's okay to be me. No one's gonna ask me if I can make a living doing it because I'm not right now. I'm really broke when you first moved to town, and it's one of those things where you see both sides of it. You come to town as somebody who has almost no contacts, one friend, and then that spurs into, oh, this person, this person, you should meet this person, meet this person, and it's so multiplicative is not the word, but what's the exponential?
Yeah.
You get so much exponential growth when you move to town and you start meeting people and you start working with people that fit in the lane that you're going in. You develop so quickly that like there is something really special about this town where it challenges you in a way that you wouldn't be elsewhere, but it also connects you in a way that you could never be if you weren't here. And that's my biggest thing is when people were asking about, oh, what should I do? I'm starting out as a songwriter or producer. It's like, do you live in Nashville or LA? And it's like, if you don't, you have to move here. Like, if you want to do this as a career, you have to move to Nashville or LA. I would say New York, but no one's in New York anymore. If you want to do it, you gotta be here because you won't grow in the right way and you won't meet the right people if you're not. And everyone knows it. Like you want to say, oh, it's fine if you travel in, but it's really not, because as soon as someone goes, oh, you don't live in Nashville, we're never gonna be able to get something down. You know what I mean? Like we can't plan 3 months out to be like, oh, have one right with that one person. It's like you just gotta be here.
Yeah, you miss out on that camaraderie of being like fellow Nashvillians too. There is something like there's a trust that's there where you're like, no, I mean you're here too, sticking it out just like we are. So
yeah, it's so important, man.
It's a great community. And two, I mean, me moving from Northeast Ohio, I remember I was just like so much, like after a year, I was so much nicer to people. That Southern, the Southern charm or that like just hospitality, man. I mean, I don't care. It grows. My wife's from Brooklyn, man, and her family moved here. And they went from New York to Nashville in like 2 years, and they're the nicest people in the world. I mean, I love them. They're still nice, but I mean, just when I first met them, from like just being here, completely changed, and just so much. I don't know. You get like this warmth about you, and that's what makes you better with people. Makes you better with making relationships and things like that, which are very important here in the music industry. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Nashville's a special place, man, and I think we can all say that it's affected us in a way that I don't think any other city really can. And just the people that I've met, I wouldn't have without being here, and that's everything. Like,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. From the day I moved here, like everything just started working out.
Yep.
Like
Yes.
I'm like, this is
Yes.
crazy, dude. Because I moved out here from Portland, Oregon, and it's just like for whatever reason, everything was just a struggle out there, man. School was a struggle, college was a struggle, relationships were a struggle.
Yep.
Bands that I was in was a freaking huge struggle. And I got here, everything just fell into place, man. I got like the best friend, of my life right here, and along with 2-3 other best friends. Met my wife here, got a fan. It's like everything just like fell into place, man. It's a cool vortex.
It does something, man,
Yeah.
because it puts you out of your comfort zone where you're like, oh, anything goes now, and I'm literally just trying to be the best person that I can be, and I think something magical happens.
Yeah, I got a couple friends still up north that do music, and I encourage them. And they're great, but without being here, it's really hard, I think, to, I guess, quote unquote, make it. I
Yes.
think what you said and tapped into was you kind of have to be at a music hub, and I honestly, I mean, Nashville is just. LA's beautiful. They got the beach, they got the mountains, but Nashville, man, I'm telling you, I'll swear by this. We got the people, we got the community.
Yep.
There ain't no other place like it.
That's so true, man. And I think so many people have misconceptions when they come here as like a musician that's trying to move to town, where they're like, oh, I can just play cover gigs in bars and make like $300-$400, right? Nope.
No.
That's not how it works.
Uh-uh.
I remember the first time when I moved to town, and I'm like, oh, so you just go down and play on Broadway, right? That's a thing. And it's like, nope, that's his whole own community, and none of them get paid except for tips. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's the only thing I knew how to do in Florida, playing hotels and stuff like that. So I'm driving my ass up to Bowling Green, Kentucky to play for $50 at the White Squirrel Brewery. And eating a dinner for free, which was amazing, and they took such good care of me. But I'm very grateful for them up there. But when my first few months when I moved to Nashville, man, I was scraping, dude.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
it was tough. But you drive up to Bowling Green, and then you're talking about that beautiful view. Oh, coming back into town, dude.
It does something. I don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
man.
It just does something.
You got a nice whole cold hard $50 bill in your
Yeah.
pocket, fed, and then you see that Nashville skyline, you're like, anything's possible. But I'm grateful for those times, because that gives you, like what we were talking about earlier, perspective is so important, and you can't gain it any other way than having something that was like really, really challenging for you in any area of life, whether it's, losing a family member or having it difficult when you first moved to a town, or, losing a girlfriend, or like, whatever it is, like there's no other way, putting yourself outside of your own boundaries. Like there's no other way to get there without going through it.
Absolutely, man. And sticking with it consistently. What was it? Was there like a certain year mark where things started clicking and you were out of the scrape zone, so to call it?
Man, but probably middle of last year.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas
so,
like,
is that like 7 years?
Oh wait, you're talking about like the music as a whole?
Like the timeline you've put in Nashville. I think people think they come to Nashville and things happen right away, but
Yeah.
it
I'm gonna
really
be a
is
star
like
in like 6 months.
Yeah. That doesn't happen. Well,
anywhere, but here it's definitely like multiple years.
my 3-year anniversary will be May 30th of this year. So
Oh, wow,
this
okay.
month.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've only been here 3 years, but I was coming up beforehand, back and forth for like a period of like 5 months in 2015. So we'll say 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I was working on cool stuff about a year and a half in, I would say. Like I was writing with people that I've always like dreamed of working with, and I was recording some people that I was really proud of. But it didn't end up getting any cozier until like middle of last year, which would be like 2.5 years in, where it was like, okay, cool. I'm starting to see like how I could grow this as an actual business, and how it could actually turn into being like my livelihood for the rest of my life. So, nowhere near the rest of the life situation right now, but in a place where I am working on projects that I'm really proud of and I'm stoked about, and making a living, and like enough to be able to like continually upgrade the studio, and like looking at a different space, and starting a little label, and starting to figure out how I can grow this in as many different ways as possible. But I wasn't able to get into that mentality until I had gone through staying up till 3 a.m, working on as many projects as I could, writing with as many people as I could. But now I work on what I love solely. I don't touch anything that I don't love. I will not take a client if I do not actually love them as a person and love their music. And I learned that the hard way so many times where I was like, nah, I need the money. Or, you know what? I'll just do this because it'll look cool. Nope.
No.
It will always fail.
Yeah.
At least for me, you know, like I haven't had a situation work out where I've been like, I'm going to take this for the wrong reason. But every time that I have gone like, oh, I really like this person, I want to invest into their career deeply, those have been the ones that work out. And the one thing I'll add to that, if there are any of the producers out there, you will work so much farther than what your scope is on every single project. If you're a good producer, you will overwork yourself. That's just how it goes. There's no kind of conservatism in production for an artist, because there's just boundaries you're going to continue to cross to try to make a better product, that you'll way outwork your paycheck, you'll way outwork your scope, but you'll do it if you love somebody. You won't do it,
right?
And you will let that person down if it's anything less than that. Like it's just how it is, you know. Like it's important to really care about your clients, and at least coming from my perspective, that's what I've learned so many times over and over again. And truly, now I'm to a point where I'm only working with people that I love. And it has been that way for a little while now.
Yeah, it seems like you have
cool,
a wonderful relationship with time, with your time, which I think is great. And one thing we always try to push, I think, in our mission too, is authenticity. And like, yes, you can have a vision and yes, that's amazing, but it's what you do with that vision. And a big thing is time management. Like, yes, you should invest in yourself, but you know, as a writer, I will say this, like listening to your story, you know, I used to think you would have to write doubles every single day in Nashville. Like you had to, and even if you knew the write was going to be terrible, you still take it because you still got to write. Like you just got to show up and write. But that's not the case. I don't think that's the case of success. Success is working with people that you actually can find, that you gel with, that you know you're going to make magic. And if you know that you're not going to do that with this person, and maybe it's your third time writing with them, it's okay to say, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do this. And a lot of people don't do that, but I really respect that out of you. Who it just seems like I don't know, man. You just got this like you know what's right, and that's what you go for, and that's so important for success.
Well, the reason why you and I are here is because we get along so well. And the reason why I know Kevin is because we musically get along, and as people, like we all get along, and like that's the only reason why we would need to be together, you know?
Right.
Like we're positively contributing to each other's lives by literally being in the room right now. Like I'm feeling inspired. I'm gonna leave here tonight and be like, I just had so much fun hanging out with you guys, and I feel like, you know, deep in my heart, I'm like that made me restored.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, likewise,
so
brother.
I think the more that you can have control over your life to make sure there's people that are coming in your inlets, and like controlling your inlets and your outlets is so important.
Yes.
As a human being, where it's like the more that you can look at that and go, can I genuinely contribute to this human being? And if you can, you should be in the same room with them. If you can't, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Find someone else. I'd rather write with Steve and Nora like one day a week than 5 random people that I am doing just because I think it'll look cool. Like,
even if they have these big deals or whatever,
that shit doesn't matter. Oh my gosh, man! That's here's a piece of advice for anyone moving to town: don't get so excited about that deal.
Yeah,
because it's not what you think it is. Nor are the people that have them any more impressive than what you can be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you don't know the people that have said no to deals that are amazing, and the people that have said yes to deals that are incredible too. But the obsession behind the record deal, the publishing deal, the management deal, I've been obsessed with all of them in the past. And I've learned over and over again, unless it's the right people at the right time, ain't gonna work.
Right.
Ain't gonna work. And you'll learn it, and you'll learn it the hard way over and over again. But don't become obsessed with the deal. Become obsessed with the people.
That's
yes, dude.
fucking
God, that's
awesome,
beautiful,
bro.
Man. Because because that label, that's just someone putting money behind you. I mean,
sure.
That's like,
and that's important too, because to be able to get the music out to people. But if it's not the right people that you're dealing with, you will have a miserable time, guaranteed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to work out. You know,
no, that totally makes sense, man. I think
that is no way a negative thing.
No.
That's just a positive.
Yeah, not at all.
Of like.
Yeah, that was intended to provide relief to anyone out there listening that has been super obsessed with that. Is like you don't have to be.
Yeah,
I just want our audience to know too, like right before we started the podcast, we've been rolling for like 2 hours previous just talking. And that's a very special because, you know, a lot, when you talk about relationships and how important they are here in the music industry, yes, they are. Relationships, I think I said it the other day where it's like, you know, talent gets you through the door, but relationships can get you through the kitchen. But it's also like... It's just important about being a good person, and I think just being a good hang, like that good hang, is very, very important. And if you just have an attraction about you, like Phil, like if I didn't even know that you played an instrument or whatever, I would just be like, just by knowing it, be like, dude, I want to hang out with that guy all the fucking time. Like, absolutely. None of us are like hang out because we think we're going to get somewhere with music, or it's like we're going to climb up, or like this person has connections, this person doesn't. No, it's because we're good hangs. It's because we're good people. That is so important. And a lot of the people that do have success in this town or in any business ever, it's usually people that just have camaraderie with each other and they just love each other as people.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I would say like, you know, if you are moving to town and you're new and you're like, how am I ever going to meet anyone? How am I going to network? Well, examine your relationship to people right now. How strong is your friend group? How strong is your, you know, connection to yourself? How well do you really know yourself? I would definitely start there, because that's going to make you a better friend, a better person to be around. And then, you know, behind closed doors, keep honing your craft and everything. But as your interpersonal skills develop, that stuff will just kind of come out naturally, man. And people will be willing to give you a shot. So,
and developing an ability to reverse engineer is so important too. Where if you can look at someone that you idolize or that you see is further along than you, and you go, okay, they're there. How did they get there? What do they behave like? What do they eat? Where do they shop? What time do they wake up? What do they do? And the more specific that you can get on what people actually do that you look up to, the more that you can learn the tactics. You can't learn the actual tenacity. Like
right.
That comes along if you actually enjoy it, you'll do it. But you can literally study the people that you love down to a T. Everyone shares everything on the internet. You can know exactly what your idol does every single day, and you can take the parts that work for you. Oh, I really like waking up at this time. I really like doing this and feeding myself in this way. I really like I really like managing my relationships in this way. I want to work with this type of artist. And the more that you can pick out the things that you love from each of those people that you look up to, you can start to assemble. Kind of in the way that we were talking about earlier with like the bands that I loved growing up that are now deeply influenced by production. Like I'll be referencing Death Cab for Cutie on a country project and the artist will never know it, but it's just something that I heard years ago. Yes. In the same way that you can pull from your idols and pull from people that you look up to and go like, I love the way they do that. Even down to freaking candle that you see on their Instagram story and you go, I want to smell something just like they do. Yeah. And you know what? When you light that candle the next day in the studio, you're going to be feeling just like them. Like for some reason, it's a weird thing, but the more that you can pick up the positive traits of people that you look up to, the better off you are. And I'm always doing that, man. Like that's why I love asking you guys like questions about like how you're developing yourself and how you're getting into and how you get through every day. You know, like there's nuggets in there that are going to be life changing for me.
No, dude, I love that about you, man. And you and I are kindred spirits in that regard, man. Mm-hmm. That we're students of like successful habits and routines, and like I'm like obsessed with it, dude. I study a lot of that, man. So I love that you say that. I was also gonna say, then you can apply that reverse engineering process to yourself too, right? You can say where's my ideal version of myself in relation to the version of myself right now, and don't get down on yourself about it. You don't have to impose this negative judgment on you. Just look at it from like a 30,000 foot view objectively and say, okay, that's where we are. What are the skills I need to develop? What do I need to work on to get to that ideal version of myself? While you're also studying, you know, what people you look up to do as well, because ultimately it's inside of you. Would you agree that that's how you're going to get anywhere you want to go?
Absolutely. And you can emulate as much as you want, but the more that you can get down to the core of what you actually need as a human, what kind of sleep you need, what you should be eating, where you should be going, who you should be hanging out with, and really, really dialing that in for yourself and seeing what that is. Like until you do that, you won't know yourself. Yes. And you won't perform well.
You know
Like,
what's
you just-
funny?
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and what's funny about that, that's hyper practical, man. And I think, as artists, at least for me, dude, I was never a detailed practical guy, man. I had to learn and develop that. I am now, but that was definitely not my default, man. My head was in the clouds a lot, and I was just operating under the assumption that the innate talents that I had would get me to where I needed to go, and that's just completely false, man. We are just like any other machine out there. Like, you have to fine tune and maintain and make sure everything is running on all cylinders, to use a car reference. But my whole point of that is, like, embrace practical bullshit. If it's fucking boring, it has utility.
Yeah.
So don't shy away from that.
And to touch on that exact point that you're talking about, people, I understand how people could listen to what we're talking about and think what we're talking about is extraneous and excessive, and just like, oh, you're just like living in a fluffy life where you care about the way that you feel being around someone. But I'm telling you, when it might not be in every area of life, where every field that you're in, but the industry that we're in, you have to care about that. Because if you don't, and you try to skate by and be like, I need to have no interpersonal relationships, and I can just be a machine, and then I don't really care about how I handle relationships, it's going to bite you in the ass in this industry. Like, you just have to tap into that part of yourself for what we're doing. And it's very taxing sometimes, like, try to be that self-aware with yourself and be able to face yourself in a way that's like, am I being truly honest right now? Am I really being as, like, at my optimum? Like, but it's almost like, I'll compare it to, like, the way that athletes train is way different than a guy that plays basketball every Friday trains. Way different. You know what I mean?
Way different.
The athletes are the ones that are stretching. They're eating the right food. They're going to the gym every single day. They're getting enough sleep. And you might think, well, maybe if he slept a little less at night. No, that's going to affect him on Friday when he has to do the race. And that's the same way for us. If you're not working on all areas of who you are as a creative person and maintaining them and caring for them and trimming the weeds, you will fail at that one way or another. And then it's just the more that you can become aware of that, I think is so important. So it's not excessive and it's not fluffy. This is like mission critical stuff that we're talking about.
Yes, yeah. This is foundational.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. That's the word I could not get to.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hey, man,
I need to keep you around me.
I'm here for you, brother. I got you, man.
Honestly, that's why, like, I love, because I was never like a more like detailed person and stuff, and you two, obviously, you guys have that kindred thing, and it's great because I will like a sponge, man. I want to soak in all that, and I think who you surround yourself with in any field, in life, in any business, it is so important that you surround yourself with people, I think, that are they could be better than you at something. They could be more successful, and you're not going to get angry at that. It's people who you can learn from. You don't want to hang around people that are just like you. There's no growth in that. You want to hang around people that can shine a little bit of light, and that's what you should take from them. And that's what makes you a better person, and that's what makes you a little bit closer to the top of the ladder of success.
That's so
Oh, yeah, man.
Hey, I have a question. What is the top of the ladder for you guys? What does that look like? Do you have an idea? Like, even if the answer is you have no clue, like, that's fine.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, I guess it would be threefold. So the one would be just making premium quality clothing. Like, we have the hats and the t-shirts right now. We're gonna eventually get into actual satin bomber jackets, and I'd love to get into the denim game and stuff too. So really, being in the top of our field in terms of apparel and like the fashion design stuff. That's all good. We want to take a lot of pride in that and be at the top of our game. But number two is growing this podcast, man, and really giving people, the practical knowledge and also beyond that they're getting through this, and just changing lives. Hopefully there's someone listening that wants to move to Nashville, that has a big creative vision, and this is helping them out. So that's very important. And then the third is, taking a portion of our proceeds and actually giving it back to an artist that is stuck, that needs that little extra boost to go out. So the philanthropy through that, providing value through the podcast, and then being a top of the line, apparel brand, not top of the line like Versace. We want to be like accessible, but just high quality goods. and with badass designs is what I would say.
When we started this thing, we never were like, and I'll be very honest, we were never like, oh man, this would be so cool. We'll just have our own T-shirts and we'll sell them around town. And we'll sell them like, this would be a fun thing. We get make some income or whatever. No. We said we are a multi-million-dollar industry. Okay, and Kevin sends me a text every single day. And I shit you not, it says, we are a multi-million-dollar clothing and lifestyle brand. We change lives and make an impact. And so that's what the top of the ladder of success looks like. And that's, he sends me that every day. And that's our kind of bit of manifesting it. But we set out to do this, and that's what we're going to do.
So real. Manifesting is so real. So often, I know the culture now lives in a state of anxiety and depression constantly. And if you're constantly living in that world and not trying to fight against it, you will end up there. And I've been there, man. Winter for me is always tough. Like, I think for all musicians it's tough because there's less work going around, and there's not only for financial reasons, but also for like just mentality. Like if you're not working on something creative throughout the winter, it can get really dark.
Yeah.
And even so with the weather, it just affects you in a way. And I know for myself, like I experienced an immense amount of anxiety through December and January of this past year, where it was like, I'm not working on a ton right now, so I don't feel like I have my purpose. Mm-hmm. And then just the weather was crummy, and it just the less friends were around. And I remember just going inside my head, and certainly things did not go as the way they should, because I'm constantly thinking about, oh, well, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about this? What am I going to do? Yeah, what are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
Rather than going, next week's going to be fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm going to go to a park in the snow.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, that's awesome.
The more that you can have that energy of like, oh, things are going to be awesome next week, the better that next week goes.
Exactly.
No matter what happens to you.
Yeah.
It's almost like a bulletproof vest of like going out into the world and being like, yeah, but it's going to be good. Like,
yes, yeah.
This just happened. This just went wrong. Everything can go wrong in a day, but you can still end up the next day being like, yeah, but it's going to be good.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I forgot to add to the last question you asked is like, as we grow as an apparel company, as we get a warehouse and we have like our own fulfillment out of there, and we have a legit company with 45, 50 employees. I'm personally looking forward to being a leader of that. It's very important to me to create a good business culture, and we're laying the foundation for that right now. Naming our values and where we're trying to go, and I think I'm super excited for that down the road when we have that first hire. We can bring them in, and now we have this whole family that is inspired and lifted up, because I've had my fair share of just terrible experiences in employment situations. It can be so much better, man, and I have a really clear vision of what I want that to look like as well. So creating that, and then like lifting up every single employee to inspire them to do what we're inspiring our listeners to do right now, man. Like, that's super exciting to me also, man. Just creating jobs, creating hope. That's awesome, man. So I wanted to say that because you were kind of touching on that too. So
yeah, man, that's how you move the ball forward, is that you just try to make things better for the next person in line.
Yes,
that's it. If that's all you do with your life, and I think that's what we're all here to do, and what we will inevitably do, is just push the ball forward for the next person.
Definitely, man. Moving the needle.
Yeah.
It's been a great conversation. And honestly, like there's a segment where we're always like, hey, the cold email segment, I don't think we even have to touch up on it, because I think Phil has answered it multiple times just with your wisdom and your insight. So thank you.
In terms of what I would recommend to someone moving to Nashville.
Yeah, if someone was like, hey, I'm a producer living out of state, name whatever that state is, and they just sent you a cold email, hey, Phil, I heard something that you did, man, I really look up to you, got any advice for me? We did kind of cover that, unless something came to mind that
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, just to summarize, like, don't care about the deal. Just make good music, and make it with people that you love. Very simple. And then do it as often as you possibly can. Whatever you got to do, you got to work a coffee shop job, you got to work in a restaurant, you got to do anything, like, to do what you need to do. Just make it as often as possible with people you love, and then it'll all work out. Nashville has a way of doing that.
My man. So we like to always end this podcast with a question. This is our company slogan, motto, and I'll ask you this question. It's whatever comes off the top of your head. It's whatever comes out of your heart, really. But what does Bomb Your Boundaries mean to you, Phil?
Man, I I think it's seeing where your pain points are and then pushing farther. Seeing the things that make you uncomfortable. Seeing the things that make you doubt yourself and facing them and pushing past them. And then experiencing a whole nother set of them. And then a whole nother set of them. And a whole nother set of them. And realizing that life is a continual experience of bombing your boundaries. It's not going to be as easy as listening to this podcast and going, oh, I picked up everything that Phil and Steve and Kev said, and I'm going to dominate the music industry. Nope, because tomorrow I've got some more boundaries that I need to bomb for myself that are going to be scary for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a reality. It's like there's always going to be more, but you can't get to the next level unless you get this one, So for me, that's like, it's a constant state of trying to make yourself a better human being and be the best possible person that you can be. And I think for a lot of people and for myself, like, that's why I'm here, is just to be the best person that I can be and help other people that are going through whatever they're going through to become the best person they can be.
Dude, that's beautiful, man. Yeah, never arrive, man. It's that moving target.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's a great answer, man. That's really beautiful. Really well put, man. Well, damn, man. I have really, really enjoyed this conversation today. I could keep going for hours, but I think we are kind of at that time. So, Phil, I definitely want to make sure people know where to find you online. So, where would that be?
Instagram's the best spot. At Phil Barnes Music. Barnes just like Barnes and Noble.
Perfect.
Very simple.
Easy enough, man.
That's probably the best place. Also, if you want to email me, I do love emails. phil@plbandco.com is great. Drop me a line if you're moving to town and you have any questions about what that is like, or if I can help in any way, or if you'd like me to produce your next record, I would be honored. So, that's the best spot. Instagram @PhilBarnesMusic, and then my email.
Perfect, man. Awesome. Well, if you guys listened today, got value out of that, like I know you did, please be sure to rate and review us. It really helps a lot wherever you're listening to this, be that iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. Please drop us a review. We really appreciate that. Head over to Instagram @Bombers and Sleeves. Please make sure you're following us, and head over to the website bombersandsleeves.com and join our mailing list for exclusive offers. We will also be emailing you, when new podcast episodes are coming out and stuff like that. So we want to connect and engage with you. So please, make sure you're making comments on our Instagram posts. Make sure you're signing up for our newsletter. It's just lots of new, super cool, exciting stuff coming up. We're going to be really active at pop-up events this summer, so we want to make sure that you guys know where to find us there. We want to meet you in person and say what's up. So, Steve?
I just want to thank our special guest, Phil Barnes, again. Man, thank you for all your insight, information, all the education. I know our audience got a lot from you today. Thank you for also just being a beautiful person, man. I mean, you're just an amazing guy to know, and I know Kevin and I thank you from the bottom of our heart, just to know you, bro. So, guys, if you're a songwriter, if you're looking to, if you need a project produced, I'm telling you, Phil Barnes, check him out. He's the best. He's the best. That's all I'm going to say. So, thank you guys. And don't forget, bomb your boundaries, baby.
Peace.